watching the little ones in the back there, so. Got some notes here, Darrell, so be prepared. All right. There we go. Very good. Okay. Good evening. My name is Tyler Kettleson. I'm married to Darrell's oldest daughter, Lisa, whom you just heard from. Before I met Darrell, I asked Lisa what her dad was like, and she said, "My dad is weird." He's funny, but in a weird way. I didn't understand this at first, but 14 years later, I now know exactly what she was talking about. When Lisa and I got married, some of you were probably at our wedding. Darrell gave a speech at our wedding that I'll always remember. He likened our marriage plans to the Cubs fans' mantra, "Just wait until next year." As a diehard Cubs fan, I greatly appreciated that joke, and it was well played, Darrell. Well played. But somewhere along the way, I became convinced that Darrell started to view retirement with the same sentiment. Wait till next year. Well, next year is here. And just like the Cubs, next year is here. For those of you that didn't already know, Darrell is a diehard Cardinals fan, and I'm a diehard Cubs fan. We have pretty much remained civil when it comes to the Cubs-Cards rivalry, until now. The times are changing. It's time to get rid of the old, traditional standard that's been at the top for what seems like forever. The younger, hipper, new generation is moving in and taking over. Oh, I'm sorry, did you think I was talking about Darrell's retirement? Oh no, that was a reference to the Cubs taking over the Cardinals' spot as #1 for so many years. This is only the beginning. The Cubs beat the Cardinals last year in the playoffs. The Cubs have already won 2 of 3 from the Cardinals in St. Louis this year. The Cubs are in first place this year. The Cubs are going to win the World Series this year. And Darrell's retiring. The stars are aligning, and this is here. Times are changing. Let's be honest. Whether we're talking about Darrell's retirement or the Cubs taking over the Cardinals, this changing of the guard, so to speak, is not necessarily a bad thing. The time has come for the old traditional model of excellence to step down for the new youthful movement to storm in and claim their spot at the top. Just like the highly successful St. Louis Cardinals, Darrell has had a few bumps in the road. I was able to be a part of some of Darrell's mishaps, and I'd love to share those with you tonight. For example, the time Darrell backed his vehicle out of the garage with the tailgate open, only to slam the raised tailgate into the ceiling of the garage and subsequently shatter the back window. This actually reminded me of the time when the Cardinals shattered the dreams of their fans by losing the 1985 World Series. Or maybe even when they lost the NLCS in 2012. I can talk loud. Another embarrassing moment for Darrell was the time when he was setting up a newly purchased flat-screen TV in his living room. While he was lifting and moving his old TV, he dropped it. Just like his tailgate window, that shattered too. Talk about a bad case of dropping the ball. Now that I think about it, that was a lot like the Cardinals dropping the ball in last year's playoffs. I'm also reminded of the time I saw Darrell chasing squirrels in his yard. It was in the summertime. I was upstairs. I was in the upstairs bedroom in the Jepson's house. I started to hear sounds outside the window in the bushes next to the house. I looked out the window and I saw Darrell running full speed at a squirrel with a fishing dip. He then captures the squirrel in the net, spins the squirrel around and around, only to let it go after a few additional quick twirls. Naturally, I'm a bit confused as to what I just happened to accidentally do. I asked Darrell about this. His response, "I just wanted to teach that squirrel a lesson." See, Darrell has a hobby of feeding birds and setting up bird feeders. He didn't want those squirrels in those bird feeders. Somewhere in this world, there's a squirrel that is thankful it got away that day. In all honesty, that incident only to let him get away and escape to the Cubs. And finally, perhaps the biggest blunder on Darrell's otherwise seemingly spot-free medical career happened on December 26, 2009. He knows where I'm going with this. After celebrating a family Christmas with the Jepsons at their house, I began to feel ill that evening. I hoped I'd feel better in the morning. I didn't. The next day was December 27th. I felt worse. I had extreme discomfort in my stomach area and knew something was not right. I asked Lisa to take me to the hospital around 10 o'clock that night. Believe me, I knew who I was dealing with, and I was not going to get any sympathy from Darrell or Lisa. They told me I was fine, and I should just go back to bed. I said that I need to drive myself to the hospital because something's not right. Before I considered taking myself to the hospital, because Darrell and Lisa simply refused, I decided to try and figure out what was going on, so I did what most people do. I Googled my symptoms. I looked them up on WebMD. I knew this also would not go over well with Darrell. Well, let's face it, I was desperate. I discovered that some of my symptoms were pointing to appendicitis. I reported my research to Lisa. She laughed and said, "You don't have appendicitis." She mockingly reported my self-diagnosis to her dad, and they both again told me to go back to bed and that I'd be fine. I vomited a grand total of 25 times throughout the night, the entire night, and into the early morning. Now it's December 28th, 2 days after initially feeling sick, and upon hearing how my night went, I think you probably literally heard how my night went, Darrell finally agreed to see me in his office, I think to probably just appease me. At this point, I could barely walk. Seriously, I could barely walk. And Jolene, whom I'll forever appreciate for what she did that day to help me, she drove me to the office, where Darrell ordered some tests to be completed. Darrell called shortly after, saying I needed to come back to the hospital right away for an emergency appendectomy. Needless to say, I was relieved to learn that these tests validated my discomfort, but I was mostly relieved to know that Darrell and Lisa were proven wrong, that they now knew I was not making this up or that I simply just didn't have the flu. I'm not one to say that I told you so or I was right, but I told you so, and I was right. On a side note, the on-call surgeon that day was Dr. Tom Foley. May he rest in peace. Well, after nearly a 2-hour surgery and a 5-day hospital stay over Christmas break and a full recovery, I'm now without my appendix and all is well. Yes, that's right, 5 days in the Marshtown Medical and Surgical Center for something that Darrell told me would be a simple 2 to 3 day hospital stay. Celebrating the New Year in the Marshtown Hospital will always be one of my most memorable New Year celebrations. Why 5 days? Dr. Foley reported back after surgery that my appendix was black, speckled, and less than 45 minutes away from rupturing, and the infection had started spreading, thus the lengthy hospital stay that allowed me to experience the rare deductible double, as I like to call it. Meeting your deductible on December 31st, and again on January. 5 days. 5 days. Day 5 is January 1. I think it's safe to say this was one time where Darrell missed and struck out. The last time I saw a display of that much denial was when Mark McGuire denied his use of performance-enhancing drugs. I do have to admit, though, just as the case for Darrell, it was difficult to find any blunders, errors, or misses within the history of the Cardinals' body of work. Let's be honest, it's quite different comparing Cubs to Cardinals. Like the Cardinals, Darrell is a class act and a true professional. Like the Cardinals, Darrell is extremely hardworking and dedicated. Dedicated to doing the right thing, even when others would question his methods. It was his way, the best way, the Cardinal way. Like the Cardinals organization, Darrell is smart, professional, sometimes feared, but always respected. Players will and go. Good doctors will come and go. But they will ultimately always be striving to reach the standard of excellence for which Darrell has worked so hard to establish and sustain for decades. Like the Cardinals, Darrell is the gold standard. There is nobody I would want more to provide guidance, leadership, support, and love for me and my family than Darrell. Just don't let him diagnose appendicitis. Well, congratulations, Darrell. Happy retirement.